What's going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS podcast live stream. Podcast.
Come on,
we already
man.
recorded the pod. You guys already listened to the podcast. I wasn't even part of that podcast. It was Sean. It was James. This is the live stream to update you on everything that you heard from the podcast.
Nice.
Again, James, I'm playing injured here. Like it's already off to a slow start. Not the way I wanted things to kick off. But anyways, we have a slate to get to today. How are you feeling about things?
Feeling good. Sean and I talked about it on the podcast last night. That first off, did you listen to the pod, John? Don't lie.
No.
Nope. Yeah, Sean and I both predicted you wouldn't. So okay, that's first and foremost. That was our.
Saul ruled out due to health protocols.
Oh, things are just going terribly.
Kicking it off already with a bang.
So we talked about this on the pod, like, not the best slate, John. Like, if we're being honest, there's probably 3 interesting games and then bits of pieces from everything else. Like, obviously, Memphis, Washington is going to be very chalky. Obviously, Denver, Milwaukee is going to be very chalky. I think the Knicks side of things, is interesting. I liked the Boston Clippers game kind of more when Jaylen Brown wasn't in, but now that Jaylen Brown's in, I think that kind of muddies things up.
A little bit.
And, obviously we're interested in Miami, but is Jimmy Butler going to play? So there's still a lot of things hanging in the balance. And now, obviously, this Marc Gasol news could throw a wrench into everything because we've seen a trickle down, right? We've seen one guy ruled out due to health protocol. I mean, has Marc Gasol not been around anybody else? So I think that this
probably not, right? Who's hanging out with Marc Gasol?
Fair. That is probably fair. I don't know.
Are you going to play the Damian Jones chalk? I guess is my question.
I don't think I'm going to be playing much Damian Jones chalk. Man, nothing like Damian Jones and Justin Patton chalk nights back to back to just really get you going in your DFS. You need to wake up with all that green in your bank account the following morning.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Ray Kuhn did the playbook today, so why don't we just jump into it? We got 6 games to go over. As you mentioned already, some interesting game totals, most notably Memphis, Washington. It's 237. It's a 1-point spread. We're definitely going to be looking at that game, and he has Russell Westbrook as his top point guard on the slate. Westbrook is the top price point guard in his playbook as well. He's been playing out of his mind. Everything is pointing to this being a smash vintage Westbrook game. I have to imagine you're buying into this. Like, this is a hard to fade Westbrook night.
Hard to fade Westbrook night for sure. They look good, and they being the Wizards with Beal and Westbrook both playing extremely well. Westbrook is in his triple-double form essentially every night. It's going to be hard to fade, and especially on FanDuel where you can afford him under 10K. Like, that's silly that he's under 10K considering the current form that he's in and considering this matchup. So it is Westbrook at the top. If you were to fade him, I would not hate. I guess I wouldn't hate going to Trae Young, who I think is the clear-cut pivot at the top, but we haven't really loved attacking Miami guards, John, in the last couple of years, and Trae Young did nothing the other night to really shed that theory, He
almost triple-double. He just shot 3 for 14.
Right. So, I mean, positive regression on the way, right? And the triple-double threat has been there as well. So, I guess if you were to pivot, it's Trae, but I still think Westbrook is leaps and bounds better in terms of, like, obviously in terms of cash, but honestly in tournaments as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if we're playing FanDuel, we have to play 2 guards, like the double stack Westbrook Morant. It just makes a lot of sense. Ja is just like perfectly priced at this 7K level. If you're looking at our draft percentages over on Fantasy Alarm, we have him as the second highest, expected owned point guard tonight, only behind Westbrook. Again, it's a smaller slate. So as you mentioned, ownership is going to, sort of gravitate more towards that 237 game total. And the way Morant's been playing lately as well has been rather encouraging also to that point. So, like, I think it's going to be difficult to ignore both of those guys. They're going to fit into a lot of lineups. The question is, like, can you play Westbrook, Morant, and Giannis or Jokic, right? Like, can you fit that in on a smaller slate? Because the player pool is smaller, there maybe could be less value available, and we definitely want to get Giannis or Jokic in our lineup as well.
Yeah, I mean, on FanDuel, I think you can. On DraftKings, it's exponentially harder. You probably have to make a stance on the Westbrook decision on DraftKings because I don't find it too hard to do on FanDuel. I probably on DraftKings are pivoting to a lot of John Morant and a lot of Derrick Rose, to be perfectly honest, because I've been very transparent with you, with Fensty, with Sean on the podcast last night. I'm not fading Giannis in this current form. I'm just not. And if when, I won't even say when, if he slows down, that's something that I'm willing to accept. But when you go for 60 in 9 of your last 10 games and your floor has been 53 fantasy points, come on. So I will be on DraftKings if we can't find the value, I will be, dropping down from Westbrook and mostly going Morant, mostly going Rose, because I think they're both tremendous plays in their own. What is Morant's upside, John?
50.
In this spot? 40, 50.
Yeah, Kyle Anderson just ruled out of that game as well.
So, I mean, 50, I think Morant has 50, and if we get 50 at 7K and Westbrook goes for, 55, 60, I think you still win with Morant at 7K. And then Rose can get 40, right? In this spot, Spurs rank dead last against point guards and DVP. Like, do you think there's 40 on the table for Rose potentially? He came close. He's come close a couple times.
Yeah. I'd say like ceiling for sure in this spot against San Antonio. Again, he went for 40 the other day against the Pacers. He played 38 minutes. It's crazy getting Derrick Rose playing this number of minutes again. We didn't think we'd ever see it, right? We thought he was just locked in for the mid-20s. So, yeah, I think it's doable. And like we mentioned, with Kyle Anderson being ruled out, with Marc Gasol being ruled out, we already kind of like, not just to jump too far ahead, but just like, theory crafting the whole lineup builds here, that opens up more value. Were you in on Justice Winslow before? Well, now Kyle Anderson's out, and that could open more minutes available for Winslow there. We already liked Markieff Morris starting 3 straight games, but now if there's no Marc Gasol, are they going to play small ball tonight with Keith at 5, and that could open up more minutes for him? And there is like the value that's slowly starting to trickle in on this slate, as we go through. And there was a number of guys that were questionable with Memphis as well. So like we could still be getting more news as this breaks. So we actually just got the starting lineup for Memphis here as well. Morant, Desmond Bane, Brooks, Clark, and Valanciunas. So Bane re-entering the starting picture. I know we've had some hits or misses with him at times. Had a really good game in the blowout, 32 fantasy points. There was a run there for a bit where he was playing 25 minutes and giving us around 20 fantasy points. There's just some opening potential value kind of in that realm. Just as the news breaks, I think you're kind of right here going, being able to use Rose, being able to use a guy like Morant now becomes a little bit more viable while also spending up on some of these other guys as the value kind of becomes more apparent.
Yeah. What else do you like at the point guard position, though? I think if I'm spending up, it's Westbrook, and in this mid tier, I'm strictly playing Morant for chalk. Rose should be chalky, but do we look at any of the Miami guys? I mean, Kendrick Nunn's been your boy for quite a while. 40 minutes again, he's playing monster minutes. If Butler is ultimately ruled out, are you going back to Nunn? Do you like Dragic?
Yeah, if Butler's out, Nunn is fine, right? The question is, when everybody has been healthy for Miami in the past, it was Nunn as the inactive. They played Dragic, Butler, Hero, Robinson. Nunn didn't see the floor at all. If Butler's active now and Dragic is active and Hero is active, where does Nunn fit in that rotation? He should be in that rotation. He certainly earned, I think, a spot on the floor, as their backup 2 at the very least, or point guard, whatever they want to run it. But I definitely would have to downgrade him. I think Dragic is the safest between the two. We've seen him play with Butler. We've seen him play with Nunn. Like, we know what his role is. He's going to play 28 to 30 minutes off the bench or in the starting lineup. That's just what he's giving you. I also kind of like Kemba Walker here a little bit. Now, I understand Jaylen Brown being active maybe draws you off that game a little bit, as you mentioned. But Kemba's been playing a bit better. If he's starting to find his groove. I understand Pat Bev, but Pat Bev hasn't really been the same guy for a little bit here now. And this game, in my opinion at least, I think in theory, with Jaylen Brown being active, would make it more competitive. And we've seen the Clippers and Celtics actually play some pretty strong games with each other back and forth. They just sort of match up well. So I think Kemba's fine too. The way just given sort of recent form, I would have no real problem going in that direction. And then the Spurs guards, Spurs on a back-to-back, we hate trying to predict what's going to happen there. But I mean, like, Patty Mills has played over 30 minutes in back-to-back games. Lonnie Walker is playing a bunch of minutes. I know Keldon Johnson could be back tonight, and that could play a bit into how Lonnie's minutes go. But I feel like, they can't all just play 20. Pop can't limit all of them. So you can maybe pick and choose a guy there as well.
I agree with Kemba as a tournament pivot. I think Chris Paul is a tournament pivot. I'm just staying away from the Spurs.
Okay. Would you go Monty Morris at all?
Yeah, I mean they just don't have able bodies, so right. Probably just
34 minutes the other day. He didn't do a ton, missed shots. But he's outside of that game, it's been like 5 straight of over 20 fantasy points. So
it's a great game environment. So like, Monty would probably make my player pool.
Shooting guard, Brad Beal again. We don't need to go too much in depth here for that game. But what's your take on, I guess, like the next group? He's got Devin Booker and Paul George. Booker's been so hard to predict. We think, all right, no Chris Paul. Let's play Devin Booker. He's going to ball out. And then Chris Paul comes back. Like, yeah, let's not play Devin Booker anymore. And he keeps on performing. Now it's a matchup against the Lakers. What are your feelings here? Jimmy Butler just ruled out, by the way. So, Kendrick Nunn didn't play against Atlanta, as we just mentioned. So it's great that this is happening while we're live, because we can talk about the value. We open this live stream basically being like, can you play Westbrook and Giannis and Westbrook or Jokic together on DraftKings? Well, now you can't, because there's just these guys are popping up now that are going to bring you the value. You can get them in your lineup. So that's an interesting one. But where are you on the Booker, Paul George in that middle tier here?
I don't love the Lakers Suns game in general, so I don't have much interest in paying $8K for Devin Booker. I think Paul George is a little too cheap across the industry. I think he does more than Devin Booker peripherally, so I would lean Paul George. I liked him a little bit more before Jaylen Brown was ruled in. I hate this position. I said it to Sean last night. I think I would look at the Memphis guys, Dillon Brooks, Desmond Bane. I think those two guys stand out to me, both starting. Dillon Brooks, the minutes were concerned earlier in February. Then he rattled off like 9 straight games of almost 30 minutes. And then excluding last game where, they blew Houston out. So we can't really consider his minutes to be truthful there. The Memphis guys stand out. You can even throw D'Anthony Melton into that mix as well, who I know is point guard eligible on FanDuel, but
Melton may even benefit here with Bane starting. If they're going to play Melton at the 2, possibly Grayson Allen is out. Dillon Brooks is starting. So, if you're looking at that guard depth there, Tyus is going to be that backup point guard. Yeah, Melton could see 25 minutes tonight as a shooting guard. They could also do Justice Winslow and play him all 5 positions. So we'll wait and see how that plays out too.
Yeah, I think we just are this position is tricky. So Memphis being in such a good spot, just it's easy to gravitate towards them. For me, Lonnie is okay. I think I'd like him more if Keldon Johnson was ruled out. But I know Alec Burks is a small forward on DraftKings. He's a shooting guard on FanDuel. I like him. But I don't love this position. I would go Paul George or Devin Booker. And if you can get Bradley Beal, obviously, by all means, bet up.
Where are you with Tyler Hero now?
Definitely interesting, and he played only 29 minutes off the bench, but it was his return game from his absence, and we know Tyler Hero is a special player, so definitely interesting in tournaments. And considering it's Atlanta, there's no Cam Reddish defense there. It's Kevin Huerter on the other end of the ball. So I think Tyler Hero in tournaments is very appealing, very interesting. He would rank as one of my top heat tonight in tournaments. So I definitely have interest.
I saw him play like 45 minutes one of these games recently where all those guys were out. And I think it was against the Lakers, right? And he just popped off against them. So yeah, I think he's a super interesting tournament play. If we think the minutes are going to be there, he's just 6K on DraftKings as well. Yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting spot for him given the scoring upside. But as we mentioned, also none now, super cheap, great value play, and Dragic also very much in play with all that news there. Where else are we? I mean, small forward. You mentioned you didn't really care for the Lakers and Suns. It is LeBron though, so
sure, but
it's just that you're not paying up for him, right?
John, it's like if I'm not going to pay up for Westbrook, well, which I am in some spots, but if I'm not heavily invested in Westbrook against Memphis in a 236 total, I'm just not going to pivot to LeBron. I'm just eating the chocolate with Giannis or playing Jokic. I think for me, those are the two spots that we want to spend up on, and Westbrook would be third. So do I think LeBron? I mean, like you said, he's the best player in the world. He could obviously put up 65 against anybody, and Phoenix has been a great defensive unit this year. And that's why I lean the current version of Giannis in a crazy game environment, and lean Jokic coming off 80 last night. I lean Westbrook and all his. I mean, we talk about LeBron's triple-double upside. Well, he hasn't really shown it. He's been close, but we haven't gotten it in quite some time. So LeBron's on the pecking order, but he's not at the top of the pecking order.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Again, I like Kawhi. I think he's pretty safe. Ray has a cash gameplay.
Cheap on $8,800.
$8,800. I mean, DraftKings $8,800. I feel like that's a really lock and load play, especially cash games. I think there's GPP upside. Again, I'm a bit more bullish, I think, on the Clippers-Boston matchup than you are. Just having watched those two teams play against one another. Our guy Michael Porter keeps on playing. So I mean, that's the price hasn't really caught up yet. The double-doubles keep being there. It's just like the Milwaukee matchup, right? He's going to start power forward. He's going to be up against Giannis. Does that worry you at all?
I guess, but I'm factoring in game environment more than anything, and I love this game. So I love the game. I love current form of Michael Porter. 50% from three over his last 6 games. So I'm going to ride the hot hand and play Michael Porter in a lot of tournaments tonight. I think people probably are scared off by 6-7, by the way. The price, I think people get scared by that, and I think that's not advisable.
Right. I mean, we're getting to where he should be priced. He was too cheap before.
Right.
Our guy, Justin Fensterman, big RJ Barrett fan, big Knicks fan. I can't pick the right game when this guy.
I can't either. I cannot.
Is this the game? Is this the game for you where you think Barrett's going to get the run?
It can be. He's been really good. He's shooting the ball really well. He's getting us peripheral stats. He's scoring the basketball really well, and the minutes are back. So, I mean, you can definitely play him. I think the Knicks are really in a really good spot in general against the Spurs. And who knows what version of the Spurs this is on the back-to-back and who's playing big minutes in San Antonio. So I definitely think this is a spot we can go to RJ Barrett because, again, it gets the position really thins out. As soon as you move down the list, it thins out fast. And under 6K for RJ Barrett on this slate seems a little too cheap.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Then, of course, we mentioned Justice Winslow already. I think he's well within play.
Yeah.
The shots are just there, right? He struggled shooting the first couple of games, missed everything. Third game, hit everything. We'll get somewhere in between. And eventually, he should start seeing more minutes too. Like he had that 26-minute game, but around that, it's only been around 20, 21 minutes. I think there should be more assists in his future at some point as well. Like he's just a guy that can do a little bit of everything. So I'm with you there. And is there any other small forwards that you like?
I mean, like, I don't love the Phoenix game, but like Bridges is safe.
Yeah, I like Bridges.
Yeah, he's been super safe. I mentioned Alec Burks is a small forward only on DraftKings. I think you can go there. Will Barton continues to play big minutes, just lack of depth in Denver. 26 and 32 fantasy points the last two games, 36 and 28 minutes in those two. So I think you could look there. But other than that, like even when you scroll down the list, right, it's just so bleak, and there are not many options to even choose from. So not for me. I don't know about you, but I really draw the line at probably Alec Burks on DraftKings.
Are you in on any PJ Dozier tonight?
No, John. I will not be playing PJ. So like I know where everyone's head was at. I know where your head was at
out yesterday. So like I don't call that a loss. We as a took the L there. I expected him to play more. He just didn't. Like whatever.
I mean, maybe we see 22 minutes here, and at 3,200, let's say 3 of those 4 shots go down. He gets you to 5x, right? Like,
I just don't know why they played Cantor over him or whatever that guy's name is.
Cancart?
Yeah.
Handcart?
Yeah.
Vlatko Handcart.
Yeah, why did he play over Dozier? I don't understand. But whatever. Power forward. Where are you going? Who's your top power forward play?
Was that I mean, Giannis is the top play of the slate.
I thought that was more of a given, sure.
Okay. Outside of Giannis, I mean, it's very hard not to like Julius Randle and current form of Julius Randle. 3 of the last 4, 50 fantasy points. He's gone 46 or more in 5 straight. He gets the Spurs here. This current form of Julius Randle is amazing. And we know he's playing 48 minutes. And not actually 48, but he's playing 40. He's playing near 40 minutes. So hard not to spend up on Julius Randle. Like Tatum, I don't know, man. I think that he can get us 50. So, I mean, right, that's the same thing as Julius Randle. So I guess there's no real difference there between Tatum and Randle for me. I don't know if you share that same thought or lean one way or the other.
I feel like Tatum has I feel like he has a higher actual scoring ceiling than Julius Randle does.
Sure.
In this matchup against the Clippers earlier this year, Tatum had 34 actual, 55 fantasy points. I think Tatum is a better overall player than Julius Randle. Randle has been fantastic. He's been definitely more consistent, I think, of late for sure than Tatum. But I still think Tatum has the higher ceiling of the two. Now the matchup's tougher, right, for him. Of course, right. It's Randle has the Spurs.
But Tatum has Kawhi.
Yeah, Tatum's got Kawhi, or Marcus Morris, or however they're gonna run it. But again, I've seen Tatum in this matchup against the Clippers have huge games, consistently. So I may roll if I'm going GBPs with Tatum as sort of a pivot, and I think Randle will probably be more popular. So that's likely how I would take a look at it. Again, I'm looking at DraftKings for they have DeRozan's there. We talked about Porter Jr. already. There's not much else. Bam is a power forward on FanDuel. I think Bam against Atlanta with no Butler for sure.
Brandon Clark starting, John, 4,900. No Kyle Anderson.
Interesting. Xavier Tillman then with Clark starting and Valanciunas.
Yeah, Xavier Tillman is, I think, 3,400. I want to say, $3,400. Already been in the rotation, 20 minutes a game. So Clark under 5K though, starting is. I don't feel like we're going to get many better opportunities to use Brandon Clark at that price point.
He just doesn't do a ton, right?
Yeah, it's rebounds. It's 10 points and then like a couple blocks.
Yeah, like what's his ceiling? 25 fantasy points, which is 5x. Like it's there. He had the 36 against Houston, but it was a blowout. Valanciunas was barely on the floor. I don't know. I see it. I think it's safer for cash than GPPs. I think at that point I'd rather just play Winslow. Like Winslow could be the backup 4 here too. Like who knows? We should probably check out Popcorn Machine and see where Winslow's subbing and who he's subbing in for to see what position he's really playing. I don't mind Clark though. You're right. I like Hachimura on the flip side of that matchup.
Yep.
I think Rui's fine.
And Davis probably. Yep.
Davis isn't playing crazy good lately. With him, like most players, it's all about can he hit the shots. He's not playing a ton of minutes, 26 minutes in 3 of the last 4. But he's making the shots that he's taking, 5 of 9 from 3, 5 of 11 from 3. So if those are dropping, under 5K DraftKings for Bertans to get the 3-point bonus, 30 and 28 fantasy points for him the last couple of games. Yeah, there's value there for sure. Where do you stand on Trey Lyles tonight?
I think it's going to be Keldon Johnson contingent, kind of similar to how it was on Monday night. Also, have the Justice Winslow popcorn machine pulled up. So his first substitution he made for Dillon Brooks, who is currently starting at small forward with Desmond Bane. He started at shooting guard. His second substitution in the second quarter, he came in for Desmond Bane. Kyle Anderson also checked in, and Clark was in. So he's kind of playing the 3 pretty exclusively, at least from his substitutions right now. Okay. It looks like he subbed to start the second half. He subbed for Dillon Brooks as well. So it looks like he's pretty much penciled into small forward as of now. But we know, they're missing multiple wings tonight. So
right.
Justice Winslow he is very multi-dimensional in terms of positions he can play. So
yep. I'm with you on that one. What did you say about Lyles here again?
Very Keldon Johnson dependent for me. Like if Keldon's ruled out, I think we could play Lyles. If not,
LMA is ruled out. So
LMA is ruled out, so he's going to see minutes.
And is Keldon going to come back and play 30? And
no, especially if it's conditioning. It's not. Sure. It's just weird. Like they played Bates Diop 20 minutes last night, right? They played Luka.
Smaler.
Luka. We just call him Luka Jr. They played him 17 minutes. Again, this is like the Pop effect, right? This is what happens when Greg Popovich plays on a back-to-back. You just don't know, and this is why there are some hills that I'm willing to die on, and it's fading the Spurs on a back-to-back is one of them.
Yeah, this was like the last back-to-back they had. They didn't have LMA, and I thought for sure, I'm like, Jakob Poeltl, there's no way that they're going to limit him. And then
30 minutes, easy. Yeah,
Eubanks played like a bunch of minutes. I'm like, what is going on? Like, Poeltl's a young man. Why are you benching him on second night of back-to-back? He played like 22 minutes. So, yeah, I agree with you. But that's a good time to go to center. Jokic is there. Again, we love Giannis tonight, top power forward. James thinks he's the number 1 overall play on the slate, which I'm not going to sit here and disagree with completely.
You're just going to go Jokic. It's cool.
But him and I have gone back and forth a little bit today, and I do like Jokic. Tonight he had a huge game against Milwaukee last time out. Brook Lopez isn't doing anything to stop him. Bobby Portis isn't doing anything to stop him. He's coming off of a monster night last night, which is like maybe your only case for not playing him is that Giannis has had some rest and Jokic is on the second night of a back-to-back on the road. That's the only give I'll take for you for as a down play here. But I mean, he's just a monster, right? Both of these guys are just tremendous plays. There's enough value. We're talking about playing Westbrook. You could probably play Jokic and Giannis. Figure it out, right? Yeah. That could be a play with all the value tonight. There's just so much upside with them.
Yeah, it's not that I if one of them is 1A, the other one.
Grande just said he hates Nikola Jokic. We'll never.
Yes, well, the roles have completely reversed from last year, huh? Where you literally would say, "Don't even say." He was your Lord Voldemort, John. Nikola Jokic was he must not be named.
So.
he's 1B for me, but like obviously it's 1A, 1B, and then like everyone else type of situation. You can play them both, especially with the Memphis value. The Knicks are cheap in a really good matchup, so you can play them both. I think a lot of lineups will look the same if you do, personally. So that's probably why I wouldn't, at least on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you obviously can pretty easily. But yeah, he's clearly the top spend. And a subscriber of ours tweeted at me last night after I tweeted about Jokic, and he was like, yeah, Jokic is 10% owned on FanDuel. Jacob Bowers, shout out JR Bowers, 92, birth year 92, shout out, another similarity we have. I mean, why is Nikola Jokic ever 10%, no matter like the stakes, right? So no one wants to spend up on him because they think that center, at least on FanDuel, is where like, oh, that's a spot that I can save money. Well, you're going to miss out on 80 when you do. So I do think Jokic is the 1B to Giannis 1A tonight. And if you can play them both, pencil in 140 plus. And
I think the slates also sort of depend on a little bit too. Like you had the very questionable Joel Embiid on the slate last night.
It was two varies, John. Don't forget the second.
Very, very questionable Joel Embiid also as a spend up, and Vucevic was on there. So like, but on a slate like tonight where it's like clearly it's Jokic, and then the next tier, which is Valanciunas for me. I think is the next guy here. Even though I feel like whenever I play centers against the Wizards, they don't really come through for me. and J-Val is certainly a guy that you're like, all right, this is the 30-minute night, and he plays like 23. You're like, yeah. Damn it. But I just feel like in my bones that this is the Jonas Valanciunas not 5 fouls in 2.5 quarters game. And he can go off here.
Well, there's also no Brandon Clark to back him up, like, because Brandon Clark is starting alongside Jonas Valanciunas tonight. So, like, yes, Xavier Tillman could play extended run, but I think they're probably more comfortable with Jonas giving them 30. So I do think this is a Jonas 30.
Let's hope.
I guess, yeah. Let's hope is right, but I do feel 30 minutes from Jonas tonight. I do think he is the next tier, but I do think Bam is very safe. If you're looking at DraftKings, no Jimmy Butler, I think we could probably pencil Bam in for 45, pretty much.
What do you think about Nerlens Noel here? He played.
I love Nerlens, man. I love Nerlens Noel, and I think I wouldn't be as bullish if Taj Gibson was in the picture. Man, like you just said, he's played 40 in 2 straight games. Like, just
Taj is out. I mean, like
Taj is out. Nerlens has played 40. He's blocking.
Gibbs ran Taj 24 minutes and broke him. So
and broke him. Now he's going to run the glass wall of the glass built Nerlens Noel into the ground as well. Right. But hopefully it's after the 40 minutes he plays tonight.
Right. So I'm with you on there. We mentioned Pirtle already. Ray has your guy, Robin Lopez, in the playbook. James Grande special here. They are up against a bigger center. So Rolo may need to play the 25 minutes over Mo Wagner. Do you think there's some merit here?
I mean, he played 28 against Boston, right? And Boston has a lot of, I guess, bigger bodies that can be thrown, like Robert Williams and Tristan Thompson, like a lot of like annoyingly large bodies that aren't like great by any, like I guess, sure. Mo Wagner might pick up 3 fouls in 2 minutes anyway, because Mo Wagner can't keep his hands at the cookie jar. So you can, but I don't feel the need to go below Nerlens. I think there's enough value. Like, we didn't mention Markieff Morris. Well, you gave a shout out to Markieff earlier, but value at power forward started 3
Markieff
straight.
Is
now
super cheap on DraftKings.
$3,400.
Yeah.
And it's been that way. He has been, for his 3 starts, he's been 31, 31, 3,400. 2 of which he's put up 24 or more fantasy points.
Right.
It's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it. He just needs to stumble into like 17 fantasy points. He had 30 in 22 minutes. He would have played 28 if that game had stayed competitive. So I think there's
no Marcus All, so they're gonna have to play a different rotation. Keith could play small ball center here. Definitely different.
Harold, we didn't actually give any love to Montrezl, but I do think Harold has some some appeal now that there's no Marcus Gasol, even if he doesn't start. Which
do you like Ayton anymore?
If Harrell starts, probably, right? Because that is a big mismatch, and Ayton only 6,700 coming off 30, 39, 40, 33, 33 the last 4 games. I mean, you give us 40 at 6,700. I mean, we're in a pretty good spot. So yeah, I could get behind some DeAndre Ayton in tournaments.
I'm with you on that one. All right, but it is after 6 o'clock. We'll obviously be with you guys in subscriber chat leading into roster lock, updating you on any of the news that comes out as we approach. But for James, we will catch you guys next time.